On January 2nd, I finished writing the third draft of my book. Now, this third draft I started actually in the very beginning of 2021, and I finished it in the very beginning of 2022, so it took me about a year. Because A, it was so hard to do, and B, it just took so much rewriting and so much reworking to get it working right. It was the biggest revision I've done so far. The second draft, I hadn't really figured out how to revise properly, so I didn't do as much. So the third draft was actually the harder draft. But now I've finished it. I honestly cannot believe it. I've been working on this for so long. It has been my life. Like, every Wednesday I actually dedicated a few hours to writing it or editing it, but I spent so much time rewriting that it's almost just writing now. And it's crazy that it's done now. And in this episode of my writing journey, we're going to talk about finishing the book, reading the book again, positivity, and most importantly, what do we do from here? So as a reminder, this isn't actually me finishing the entire book. This is just me finishing a big chunk of the editing of the book. So there's still more editing to do, and there's still more work to do, but this is a bigger milestone, you could say. Finishing of editing the third draft was basically me spending quite a few hours of that one Sunday morning editing and working until I finally got it done. I've discovered that if you write for a few hours, you end up getting in this momentum and you end up getting quite a lot done. Instead of doing 30-minute sessions where you get a little bit done, instead of doing these big long sessions. Works extremely well. But what I'm doing now is reading the book again. So I printed it out and now I'm rereading it. So I think that's important because I started editing it a long time ago. And, you can forget things, or, I actually don't want that anymore, or I changed that, but I don't want to change it back, etc., etc., etc. And by reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just making little notes with a pen. I'm going, okay, yeah, just fix that later, do that, not necessarily immediately, but just make sure you look at that. And if you're editing a book, I'd extremely advise finding someone like an editor, or someone who can help you edit your book, because it's extremely helpful to get an outside opinion on your book. That's someone who's qualified or has experience looking at literature and things like that. It's really important, I think. Or at least it's really helpful. It's been really helpful for me. I have someone who is helping me edit my book, and it's crazy. So when I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, just highlight that section, because I want to make sure I fix that before I send it to anybody who's going to read it. Say, someone like a friend who might want to see if I like it, or what parts I need to change. Make sure I fix the parts that don't make sense, and then we're done there. So this is the completed third draft. I'm going to blur some of this out so you don't see what I was writing, because I want to keep it private, because, it's the internet. And I'm not trying to teach you how to write. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to talk about what I'm doing. And it may be completely wrong, but this is what I'm finding is working for me and my brain and my writer's, paranoia. What worked for me and what didn't. So I find writing it, when you're reading it again, is really helpful. Now, there's another thing. When you're reading your own work, it's really easy to get negative on yourself. Please don't do that. Do focus on the things you need to work on, because that's important, but also think about what you've changed and how you've edited and what you've done. See, when I was reading the second draft, the second draft I'd done before, I was like, oh, there's so much you need to fix, there's so much stuff. And yeah, because there was. But now, I'm making sure I look at the good things, wow, there's way less, I have way less plot holes, way less things going on, but there's just a few things, there's definitely some stuff in it, there's definitely work needs to be done, but there's less big things, and if I focus on those, those things that are more positive and the changes that are good, then it helps you have a better mindset. Yes, it is good to, focus on the bad things, so you need to fix those, but don't get wrapped up in those. You finished something, you've made something. And that's what I've been trying to get to this mindset when I'm reading, is try to make sure I don't get negative, be like, oh, that's bad, and then just getting right myself into a hole. I'm trying my best to read it and just be open and just reread what I've done and be happy, because I finished writing the third draft.
But now, where do we go from here?
The most important thing. Where do I go from here? Now that I've finished this third draft, it's closer to the end than it's ever been. Doing the first draft, you're like, oh, there's still all the revisions due, and the second draft, oh, I still got a lot more revisions due. But now in the third draft, you're like, I only got a few more revisions to go before it might be done. So what am I personally gonna do? because it changes between the writer. Like, some writers, like, oh, they need lots of drafts, depending on the book they're writing. Like, if I was writing, like, a 1,000-page book, like The Way of Kings, I need way more drafts than I'm doing now. What I am to do now is to hand this off to my editor, who is going to give me some advice on what to do, and I'm also, I think this is the time to do it, is I'm going to send the manuscript to a few close friends that I know, and see what their thoughts are on it, because I think it's good to gauge other people's opinions besides yourself and maybe one other person. Like, and in my case, I'm going to give it to some people who are the target audience of this book. So, YA middle grade / and going forward, I'm going to take a break because, my editor has to look at it a bit, and then I'm also just going to write some other things, take a break from the manuscript, because I think it's good to take a break. Because I did that before starting the third draft. Super good idea. And from now on, I don't think I'll have to go from beginning to end complete edits. I'll probably have to do, this scene needs a lot of work, this scene needs a lot of work, I need to fix this scene, and just slowly work away from there until I have a satisfactory piece. At least to me. And this is my journey of writing my book, and my writing in general. And hopefully it's a little helpful to you too, or at least interesting. And that is what I'm gonna do. I'll see you in the next one. Never stop reading.